Welcome to Hamburgers and Horror, the home of meat, monsters, and murderous good guy dolls. I'm Noah Hook, and we're back at it today with the 6th installment of the Chucky franchise, 2013's Curse of Chucky. Curse is a return to form for Chucky, and takes the series back to more straightforward horror, leaving behind the meta stuff from Bride and the celebrity stuff from Seed. Curse takes place 9 years after Seed and follows paraplegic Nika, whose mother is violently killed after our favorite good guy shows up in a package. Nika's family arrives and they are slowly hunted by Chucky as they try to figure out his connection to their family. After the critical flop of Seed, Mancini and Kirshner were actually considering remaking the original 1988 Child's Play, but ownership rights between MGM and Universal made all of that a little bit too tricky, so they opted to make another sequel, but bring it back to the tones of the original. It was determined this Chucky installment would be straight to video, so its budget was smaller at $5 million and they only had 30 days to film. Mancini figured the best way to utilize the money would be to have one predominant set, which is the big gothic home we spend most of the movie in. It also made sense to bring it back to a solo Chucky venture to avoid all of the comedic, funky doll family antics. One of the best things to happen was Fiona Dourif auditioning, where she impressed so much she got the leading role as Nika. Fiona was only 7 years old when her father first voiced the iconic killer doll, so Chucky had been a part of her life for so long it was a dream come true to work with her dad on a Chucky movie. And Tony Gardner was also able to return for the special effects and doll mechanics, so Chucky is still looking better than your typical straight-to-DVD killer doll. As is the whole movie, it looks like it was filmed for the big screen, and it's clear Mancini was more comfortable in the director's chair this time, as the movie is just so much more clear on what it wants to be. Curse was released in 2013 and made $3.8 million in its first month of DVD sales, and I assume that number has been slowly growing. Mancini's idea to make it a sort of love letter to the fans was a very appreciated effort, and Curse currently has a 76 and 56 on Rotten Tomatoes. The critical success had fans wondering why it was made straight to DVD in the first place, but Don Mancini and myself are both just happy another Chucky film was made. Curse came out when I was still in high school, and I didn't get to watch it till I was sometime in college. I remember having a great time with it then, and I'm hoping I do this time around too. I hope your electricity isn't acting up, because we're watching Curse of Chucky. The movie begins with a delivery truck heading to a super spooky house, where Nika Pierce lives with her mother Sarah. Her day-drinking mom is too busy doing art stuff, so Nika answers the door to a flirty postal worker, and he's got quite a package. Turns out they went to the same college, but Nika ended up dropping out. He very blatantly tries to fuck her, but sadly Mom is home, and he leaves for the rest of the movie. Her mom downplays the guy's interest and sees her package has no return address, and ta-da, Chucky's here. They think it's some sort of weird prank, but Mom seems awfully unnerved when the doll calls himself Chucky. She immediately puts the good guy in the trash, and we cut to that night. Nika wakes up to some horrible screaming and can't find her mom upstairs. She takes the elevator down and finds her mother in a pool of blood. We slowly pan out as Nika calls the cops to see a title card and the good guy chilling in a chair. A long opening credits shot revolves around Chucky and brings us to the morning as the police talk to Nika and Sarah's body is taken away. Her sister Barb arrives and they discuss their mom's mental state as the death was ruled a suicide, and Barb brought a pastor, which atheist Nika is not thrilled about. Nika blames herself, but Barb says their mom was supposed to be taking care of her, not the other way around. In comes the rest of the family. We have Barb's husband Ian, their daughter Alice, and their nanny Jill. Frank sits down next to the doll and Alice asks if Grandma went to heaven. Sure she did, Alice. Sure she did. But Nika does have a surprise for her. Oh, Chucky gone. Alice goes to the bathroom and Jill and Wandering Eye Ian follow. Alice be pissing and the shower curtain be crinkling, and Alice finds Chucky with some damn crazy eyes if I do say so. Chucky lashes out and Alice screams, but by the time they unlock the door, Alice is buddy-buddy with the doll. Meanwhile, Barb is proposing they sell the house and Nika be moved to an assisted living facility. Nika knows this is more about money than her well-being, and Barb admits the family is struggling. Ian has lost his job and is working at Starbucks, and poor Alice may have to attend the dreaded public school. Nika says this is her home, but Barb questions Nika's ability to take care of the house and herself. But the others return, so that conversation is put on hold, and Nika wonders how the doll got in the bathroom. After some bickering, the parents decide Alice can keep Chucky, and his eyes get hella dilated. And he tells Alice to ask what's for dinner. Much to Barb's dismay, Nika knows how to cook and offers everyone, including Father Frank, a home-cooked meal. She even enlists Alice and Chucky as sous chefs. Alice is a great sous chef, but sous chef Chucky's only contribution was rat poison to one of the chilies while the table was being set. Nika notices the moved doll and open cabinet, but obviously isn't going to jump to the conclusion there is a killer doll in her kitchen. We zoom in on the killer chili and get a sort of Russian roulette shot of the dining room table as everyone sits, with no idea of who has the poison. Father Frank makes a prayer, Ian pours the nanny some wine before his wife, then makes a toast. Everyone loves the chili, except Barb of course, and Frank recalls seeing the good guys all over the news back in the day, but nobody can quite remember why. Alice says her chili tastes a little funny, but Barb tells her to keep on eating. Thankfully, Alice is not the one poisoned, because that would be hella sad, as another spin around the table stops us to Father Frank, who isn't looking too good. He excuses himself, and Alice and Chucky watch as he drives off. We cut to the scene of Frank's inevitable accident, where a few people are dead and Frank is pinned into his crushed car. The firefighters are hesitant to pull him out, but an officer who knows him demands them to. These poor guys accidentally remove 2 pieces of metal holding him up and completely decapitate him. At least his head rolls back next to his severed hand rosary. R.I.P. Father Frank. Back at the house, the family is watching some old home movies where Barb is little and Sarah is still pregnant with Nika. Jill asks what happened to their dad, and Barb says he drowned a couple of weeks before Nika was born. The footage pans over and we see Charles Lee motherfucking Ray at the barbecue. They obviously have no idea who he is, but they can tell he's creepy. Alice tells them that Chucky is hiding, and Barb has Jill help her find him, and the suspicious Nika tries to make a call, only to see the signal is out. Jill searches all over for Chucky, but only if you look right behind you, Jill. Jill checks the bathroom and is also drawn by the crinkling shower curtain, but it ain't Chucky this time, just some howling wind opening a window. Her search takes her to the kitchen, where it seems like a knife is missing, and Barb sneaks up on her. Turns out Ian was a red herring, and it's actually Barb that is cheating with Jill. Nika returns to find Chucky sitting next to sleeping Ian, and they suspect Barb put him there as a sort of olive branch for their tension. Nika takes Chucky to the elevator to bring to Alice, and the power goes out. That sucks. Nika calls for help and pushes an alarm, and Barb just complains more about her sister to her mistress. We hear the Foley sound of a knife being pulled out, and the power turns back on and Chucky is turned around and laughing. Alice is happy to see Chucky, and Barb further expresses her concern about Nika's stress levels. Apparently she has some sort of heart issue and had an incident in the past, which is why there is cause for concern. Nika says she is fine and capable of managing herself, just in time for Alice to notice she is bleeding, which she can't feel. Barb of course sees this as further confirmation Nika can't take care of herself and brings Alice to bed, where they assume their prayer position. Barb asks if she wants to include Chucky in the prayer, but Alice says Chucky doesn't believe in God.
He said that life's a bitch and then you die bleeding like a stuck pig.
Then she asks if she is going to die because Chucky says everyone dies. Barb asks who told her that and continues to tell her it was Chucky. Despite this, Chucky still gets to sleep with Alice and gets a kiss goodnight. Alice is scared of the thunder, so grabs a flashlight and hides herself and Chucky under a sheet. She says she is scared, and 45 minutes in, we are finally graced with Brad Dourif.
You fucking should be.
Nika has finally made the call she was trying to, and she learns the package was sent from an evidence depository before the call breaks up. She goes to check on Alice and bumps into Jill. She tells her about the evidence depository, but wonders how that could be right. Jill doesn't care where Chucky came from, as this is the happiest Alice has been in a long time. Jill starts getting ready for bed, and Chucky gets out of bed. Nika hops on the always reliable internet search to learn more about the Chucky doll and finds articles about the events of all the previous movies. She reads about Andy Barclay and his many battles with Chucky. Jill is down to her lingerie and hopping on a video chat while Chucky crawls beneath her. She's sexy zooming with Barb, who sees Chucky walk by. Thinking it's Alice, she points behind her, but Jill isn't getting the memo. Maybe Chucky just needs to get more out in the open. There you go, Chucky, now she sees you. Chucky kicks a bucket of leak water right into an outlet, giving Jill a really bad zippity zap and cutting out the video chat and the power. But not before Nika discovers a photo of Charles Lee Ray, who she recognizes from the old home movies. Not sure why the power going haywire would affect the laptop, but whatever. Jill is dead, Chucky gives his first sexist one-liner of the movie and heads to a different room. Barb is pissed and says she's going to check on Alice, and Ian pretty much calls her out on her lesbian affair. Barb obviously denies it, but Ian says he'll just have to check the nanny cam he hid on Chucky today. He threatens to use it to take Alice away from her and just goes back to bed, I guess. Meanwhile, that cop from Frank's decapitation has found out he was at the Pierce house all day and heads over there. Barb glimpses Chucky running, but just thinks it's Alice again and finds Chucky on the stairwell to the attic. Nika is still stuck downstairs because of the power outage, and Barb greets her from above. She tells Barb to put the doll down, and Barb thinks she knows about the nanny cam. She starts railing on Nika for dropping out of school and never leaving this house, and the two poorly communicate with each other until Barb says fuck you and heads to the attic with Chucky. Nika calls for the dead Jill and the AirPod sleeping Ian, and resolves to climb up the stairs herself. Barb looks around the attic for Alice and finds a ton of sunflower paintings her mom made. She gives up searching for Alice and starts looking for the nanny cam on Chucky. But all she finds is a big ass knife. She gets startled by a rocking chair and puts Chucky and the knife down. Meanwhile, Nika has made it up the first stairwell and is at the stairwell to the attic. Barb finds a rat and gets spooked right into Chucky, who has a little bit of a blemish. Barb pulls away some makeup to reveal this is the same Chucky with his scars from the previous films. He bites at her and backs her into a corner. He says Alice is his now and that Barb has her mother's eyes.
And they were always too fucking close together!
Chucky chucks one down to Nika and Barb manages to stumble to the doorway before collapsing down the stairs dead. Oh, Ian is still sleeping, by the way. Chucky finally shows himself to Nika and starts following her down the stairs. She is able to get to a different wheelchair in a closet and finds Alice isn't in her bed and Jill is dead. She gets to Ian's room and locks the door. She tells him Barb and Jill are dead and Alice is missing, and he rushes out to see for himself. He eventually carries Nika downstairs and wheels her to the garage. He is going back to find Alice, and Nika pointlessly tells him to stay away from Chucky, without explaining that he's a murderous doll. While Ian runs around searching, Chucky hops into the car and starts the engine, hoping to kill her via carbon monoxide, but Nika grabs an axe and takes it to the car window. She tries to grab the keys, but Chucky beats her to them and fucking swallows them. Ian returns just in time for her to look pretty dangerous as she screams about the doll doing it. And BAM! She has some sort of medical issue where she is losing consciousness and needs Ian to inject her with something, and he refuses. She wakes up in Ian's room where he has duct taped her to her wheelchair. He asks what she has done with Alice, and she says she can prove it was Chucky, but dumbass Ian also has a way to prove it was her, with the nanny cam. We watch the footage of Ian hooking it up to Chucky, and then the footage of everything Chucky saw throughout the night, but of course he thinks it's Alice carrying the doll. He eventually sees that Chucky has hidden Alice in a locked closet and cuts to a live feed to see Chucky is right behind Nika. He pushes her into Ian, somehow knocking him out. Chucky struts over with the axe and gracefully chops off Ian's lower jaw. Now it's Nika's turn, but she manages to block his attack with her unfeeling legs and gets a hand free to bitch slap the doll. She rips the axe out of her leg and after a couple misses chops Chucky's head right off, although this time there's not blood or guts, which is different from usual. As Nika tends to her wound, Headless Chuck stealthily gets back up and reattaches his head. He grabs Nika's chair and pushes her into the hall and through the banister, destroying her chair and leaving Nika bleeding out in the same spot as her mom. Chucky makes his way down and Nika reveals she knows his identity. She asks why he's doing this and Chucky is surprised her mother never mentioned him, as he's an old friend of the family. We flash back to that barbecue where Charles is introduced to pregnant Sarah, still alive Daniel, and toddler Barb. Shortly after this, Daniel drowns, and the way Charles is looking at Sarah makes it very clear his death was no accident. Shortly after that, Sarah has been kidnapped by Charles, who has filled the room with sunflowers, the ones she was always painting. She tries to keep Charles from picking up Barb from daycare under the guise of wanting alone time with him, but Chucky wants to pretend this is one big happy family. Sadly for Father of the Year, the cops pull up outside. Charles asks why she would want to destroy this family, and Sarah says he already did and spits in his face. That kind of talk has Chucky bring out his signature knife, and he plunges it into Sarah's belly off screen, revealing he is the cause for Nika's paraplegia. He then reveals this was the same night he was shot and transferred his soul into the good guy, kicking off his reign of pint-sized terror. It took him 25 years to finally make his way back to the family, and he reminisces the other families he has encountered through the years, but Nika's has always been his favorite. He says Nika is a whiny bitch like Andy, and despite not being able to kill him, he did kill his childhood. He says he did the same thing to her, as her life hasn't been living, more like being on life support, and it's time to pull the plug. But Nika points out that he never actually killed Andy and mocks him for taking 25 years to kill her. The power cuts back on and Nika is able to crawl to the elevator and shut the gate before Chucky can get inside, but then the power cuts off again. She has to hold the gate closed and Chucky starts slicing her hands real bad and Nika grabs the blade to stop him. With knife in hand, she challenges Chucky and he accepts. He charges in and bites and scratches, but Nika has the high ground and comes down with a mighty stab. All that comes out is stuffing, and Chucky jolts back to life. That cop finally shows up, and he busts in when he hears Nika's screams. He walks in on quite a sight, and Chucky has gotten a front row seat. Sometime later, Nika is considered the culprit and has been deemed insane and unfit to stand trial. She is to be put in a high-security psychiatric hospital, and she mocks Chucky for not being able to kill her as she is taken away. That same officer is taking the evidence back, and he notices some breathing in the bag. But before he can take a peek, Tiffany/Jennifer Tilly hops out and slashes his throat with a nail file. She looks inside the bag and asks Chucky who's next. Then we cut to Jennifer at the post office mailing Chucky to another victim. Then we cut to Alice, who is living with her grandma now. Uh-oh, grandma is missing, and there is a Chucky-sized package opened in the kitchen. That's because Chucky's here. For some reason, Alice is glad to see the doll that killed her family and doesn't question grandma's disappearance. But Chucky knows how to cheer up the orphan, hide the soul. Chucky begins the incantation and stupid-ass Alice puts up zero fight, unlike Grandma who is still suffocating in the closet. And that's the end. But wait! There's a post-credit scene! We jump 6 months later and now a grown-up Andy Barkley, played by actual Alex Vincent, has received the Chucky package. He brings it inside and starts talking to his mom on the phone. Andy asks her how Mike is, revealing her and Detective Norris got together at some point, and we see his diploma from Kent, as well as pictures of Karen and Kyle. Chucky has cut himself out of the box, but Andy isn't some dumb little kid anymore and he's waiting for Chucky with a shotgun. And that's the actual end to Curse of Chucky. It really feels like a breath of fresh air for the series, similar to the way Bride did after Child's Play 3. I'm impressed they managed to make a pretty straightforward, almost one-off horror film with Chucky, and managed to keep it mysterious but then also tie it into the rest of the timeline. The first time I watched it, I was very unsure of what was going on. I didn't know if this was the same doll as in the previous films or not, and I was impressed that Mancini was willing to make it such a slow burn for the 6th installment in the series. He described the house as a pressure cooker waiting to explode, and I pretty much think he succeeded at that. Everything involving Mancini was stepped up this time. The direction was better, the script was tight, the use of lighting and shadows was really good, and most importantly, Chucky was scary again. Chucky has returned to the periphery of the film. Most of what we're seeing is from the other people's perspectives, whereas in Bride and Seed we pretty much watched the movie through Chucky and Tiffany, which just made them less scary. But here we don't know where Chucky is or what he'll do next. Speaking of, all of the kills in Curse are really fun. We've got poison and beheading, de-jawing, and of course lots of stabbing. The only one I'm a little iffy on is Jill's electrocution. It's just a hard thing to capture and make look realistic and not cartoonish. But all of the practical effects are fantastic, great work by everyone on the special effects team. And I think everyone in the cast did a great job. They are all so miserable and conniving, and I really bought all of their self-centered goals. They all have their own agendas, so they are all doing things before they inevitably get killed. Despite how much the characters hated each other, it looked like the cast all had a great time on set, which is always nice to see. Another important component to the movie is the house itself, which added a ton to the tone and the general feeling of doom throughout the movie. Production designer Craig Sandals designed this crazy house set with all of its little details, and it really paid off. It isn't a perfect film. I don't think it quite reaches the levels of paranoia that the original does, and the seeming impossibility for anybody to communicate with each other is a bit far-fetched. Chucky also seems pretty reserved. He isn't as ferocious and rabid seeming as in the original two, which is a characteristic I love about Chucky and is something I miss when I'm watching his more contemporary outings. Some people aren't big on Chucky's new look, but I get that coked out looking Chucky is wearing makeup around his eyes, so that doesn't bother me. And once the makeup is off, he pretty much looks the same. Also, it's been 9 years since the last movie and 22 since the last time we saw Chucky without any scars. He's bound to look a little bit different. One thing that doesn't add up is Chucky not having any blood. I get that the longer he's in the doll body, the more human it becomes, but this is the same body he was in the past 3 movies, and when he was revived in Seed, he and Tiffany became anatomically correct immediately. And at the bare minimum, Chucky had to have been in that body for at least a few days before the events of that night. Oh well, doll gore is probably expensive. The retcon to have Charles Lee Ray be a love-struck psychopath kidnapper doesn't really fit in with everything else we know about him. Being so self-destructively obsessed with a woman and having a family just seems very outside of the Chucky we've previously seen. He went out of his way to kill Eddie Caputo pretty quickly. I would assume a surviving Sarah would be all over the news and at the top of his hit list. But I understand some sort of retcon was necessary to get Chucky in front of a bunch of new faces, so it's not really a big deal. All in all, I enjoy Curse of Chucky. It brings him back from another seeming end and makes him the scariest he's been in over 2 decades. It's well made, well acted, and has a great gothic vibe. It works well enough to be watched as a standalone film or even a starting point for newcomers, but it also ties in everything from the past for longtime fans, and it also sets a ton of things in motion for a sequel. Speaking of, next week we'll be looking at the latest film in the canon Chucky story, 2017's Cult of Chucky. It's a ton of fun. If you haven't seen it yet, I highly recommend. Thank you so much for joining me, and shout out to my patrons for helping me keep the channel running. If you enjoy my channel, maybe consider joining. You'll get to handpick movies for me to review, as well as vote on future franchises I cover on the channel. I'm still trying to figure out what movies I'm going to cover in the coming months, so now's the time to let your voice be heard. But remember, you don't have to be a patron to request movies. Just email me your favorite horror movies at hamburgersandhorror@gmail.com. This channel is obviously a lot of fun for me, but at the end of the day, y'all are the ones watching the videos and supporting me, so I want to be making videos that you guys want to watch. I'm going to make a quick video soon to kind of give you a run through of my plan for the channel throughout the year, so keep an eye out for that. Well, that's about it. As always, I'm Noah Hook, and thanks for watching Hamburgers and Horror. Stay safe out there. Thanks for watching my review of Cult of Chucky. If you enjoyed this review, be sure to like and subscribe so you can keep up with all my Chucky content. And if you want to support the channel further, check me out on Instagram or go take a look at my Patreon account. You'll be able to request movies for me to review and vote on future franchises. Thanks, y'all.